These are my Sony cameras that take floppy disks, and they're super cool, but kind of bad cameras. So we're gonna talk about that today. Welcome back to the Snappiness YouTube channel. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world, that you're taking great photos and that you're having fun with it. It's been a while since we've sat down and talked just like this, and I'm excited to do so. The topic of today's video is pretty exciting as well. That's these Sony Mavicas, like I said. I bought these two in a lot of eBay items with some other older cameras. And it was a couple months ago. I had to buy a new battery for them, had to buy a floppy disk reader. And after that was all out of the way, I've been finally able to shoot them. And here are some of the beautiful images I've gotten from them. Okay, yeah, I was being a little sarcastic. 0.3 megapixels doesn't even look good on Instagram, so that's saying something. But before you think this whole thing is a joke, let me tell you some things I really love about these cameras, what makes them unique and special, and then some things I don't like about them. And then you can make your own decision whether or not you want to pick one of these up. First thing, and maybe the least important, but maybe the most important to some of you, is this is a real attention grabber. Out of all the old cameras, out of all the new cameras I've used, this camera has gotten the most attention online and in person from other people. People telling me that they used to own one or their parents used to own one. And then even if they don't recognize the camera, almost everybody recognizes the medium. Floppy disks. And when was the last time you saw a floppy disk? It's super nostalgic. So I just got all these comments from everybody, and it's way fun to show this to somebody and then pop out a floppy disk and see their face. And like, no way, what on earth is that you're shooting with? So it's a great photography conversation starter. Just slide that back in there. Oh, wrong way. Now the actual camera is simple and easy to use and fun to use, and I think that's another one of the pluses. So you get this super cool square design going on, which is pretty ergonomic and nice to hold. You don't have very much going on in the ways of buttons or menu options to choose from, which makes it very simple. Now I have two different models here. This is the more pro model, the one that would have been a little bit more expensive. It has a 10x zoom and a little bit more quality options in the menus. And then this one is the more basic model, but it does include something the other one doesn't, which is this little macro switch, which kind of shifts like one of the two plastic elements in the lens forward or back so you can focus a little bit closer. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, overall, I really like the body design. It's very fun to hold and to use and photograph with. It reminds me of those instant cameras that are, I don't know how popular they actually are, but they still sell them. So somebody's using them, and it just reminds me of that kind of format. Kind of plasticky, kind of cheap, but fun little square format. As far as the image quality goes, well, you've already seen it, 0.3 megapixels, not a lot of resolution here. Also on top of that, if I'm understanding what I read correctly, this is not really your typical photographic sensor. At the time, Sony was trying to make kind of the cheapest, most easily accessible cameras with the most compatible memory. And so they kind of cheaped out a little bit on the image quality department. And some other cameras did this too, but the images are really just stills from low resolution video that's feeding in through the sensor. But as bad as it looks, it's probably the most recognizable that it was not taken on any camera made past the year 2000. So that's kind of cool. If that is the look you're going for, if you want that old camera look, if you want that really old digital camera look, these will do that. And then of course, these cameras take floppy disks, which is really the most satisfying part about this whole camera and just the most fun party trick, if you could say. So this nicer version I have has a little button you have to hold down and then a release so you don't accidentally inject. And then the floppy is just open there. There's a little rubber plastic flaps there to protect the floppy disk and dirt and dust from getting in there. But otherwise, you just hold that down and it's so fun. How many times could you watch that? And that's how you get it out. The cheaper one I have is more basic, and it has a little door that opens actually. And then slides in there just like that. And yeah, I could just do this for hours. It's cool to have that like tactile experience. It's not film tactile, but it's floppy disk tactile. And nostalgia back to my childhood. I didn't shoot film as a kid. I mean, we had point and shoots, but I didn't load film into an SLR or anything. So this is kind of my tactile experience, holding a floppy disk again. And it's a good thing that popping the floppy disks in and out of the camera is so fun, because you will have to do it a lot. You're gonna have to carry a stack of floppy disks with you, because each one only holds about 20 images. That varies depending on the level of detail that you set the camera to. It can be between like 15 and 40 images. So there's a surprise for you. Think about shooting a roll of film, but you don't really know when you'll run out of room. I'm gonna turn this on in a moment and show you through the menus, but real quick, I did wanna mention that the battery these cameras take, sometimes old digital cameras, the problem is getting a battery because they aren't made anymore. But these use the Sony MPF550 batteries. And these batteries are not only used to be produced by third parties, but are currently produced because a lot of video like lights and mic systems, whatever, use these battery packs, which is kind of cool. So it was very easy to pick one of these up, very affordable. Just slide that back in there. Okay, now let me power it on for you and go into the things I do not like about these cameras. Beyond the fact, of course, that they're old and the image quality is bad and they're slow and things like that. But just something, a word of caution if you pick one up yourself. So we'll turn it on. That sound of reading a floppy disk, by the way. So cool. Okay, you can see my face, except you can't. So these cameras have been unreliable. This camera worked for a little bit. Now sometimes if I bump it, it works, but it's got something really funky going on with the sensor and everything looks like gibberish lines. And just because it's cool, we're gonna dive into the menu here. So see if I can show you. Listen to that. Beautiful Game Boy sounding sound effects. So you can change the quality, the clock settings, and format the disk. That's about it. There's not really much you can do on the menus here. And actually what's annoying is not only does this one have a sensor problem, sometimes it won't even record. So I'll try to take a picture of you right now. Listen to the recording sound, by the way, to the floppy. Oh, that one actually did work. So now we have a blurry line picture with a flash of the camera. I'll put that on the screen. I'll take a few more. And you can see it does give you a little shot counter on the top on the screen, and that just counts up your shots. It doesn't actually tell you how many shots you have left because it doesn't know. Nobody does. It's a mystery. So this is the cheaper of the two. Not that either of them were like professional cameras, but this was the cheaper of the two. Has less features. No zoom. Let me get my floppy disk. I actually do have a couple of these floppy disks, which is nice. It was included in a lot, and most of them work. Some of them don't. Doesn't it feel like loading film? It's like so physical. Okay, we'll turn this one on. And then I actually took the most pictures on this one because you can see my face. It's not all blurry lines. But the problem with this one is all of a sudden one day, it just will not take a picture. It doesn't give me an error or anything. It just will not take a picture. So I stopped using it for a long time, picked it up a month later, and it took a picture randomly. And now it's back to not taking pictures. And that really is the downside of these cameras, and probably most old digital cameras from the 90s. That's getting pretty old, and especially maybe these cheaper ones aren't built up to last that long. I don't know. But I've had problems with these cameras, and so I'm just going to give a warning that you might have problems with yours. Obviously, this is a small sample size, so I can't say that all floppy disk Sony cameras are not going to work for you long term, but it's just something to be aware of. Fortunately, they are super cheap because nobody wants them, and they're really fun. So what do you think of these Sony floppy disk cameras, these Mavicas? So cool. Did you ever own one or know someone that owned one and ever used one before? Would you ever use one? If you got one cheap enough, would you use them? Let me know in the description. I had a lot of fun with them. I think they're really neat, especially if you can pick them up super duper cheap, or just as like a conversation piece, as something to bust out at a party. with a bunch of your early 2000s friends, if you all grew up together. I think that'd be super fun. Thanks for joining me on this more lighthearted video today. Once again, I hope you're doing well and taking wonderful pictures. Remember to go out there and take pictures with whatever camera you have right now, whatever lens. No excuses. Go out there and take great pictures. And until next time, happy snapping.